So how did it go last 2 days? How was the various sessions? How was the general?
Very good sessions that we had. Very good speakers. Yes.
And how was the audience interaction and stuff like that?
All really good. In fact, we have all of these sessions going live as well. So we have links where you probably have time, you may go through the same. Very good sessions that we had on carbon credits, on blockchain. In fact, every session was really
excellent.
Great speakers.
Very nice. That's good. So we have Dr. Arvind and Mr. Hudson as speakers, right?
That's right. They've already joined us.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is that Dr. Arvind?
Yes, I'm Arvind Kumar from ICRISAT. Thank you for the invitation to ICRISAT to join this important discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Your inputs are very, very useful for the audience.
Mr. Hudson, I think you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Thank you. Is this better?
Yes. Professor Hudson, we can hear you nice and clear. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's very early here in the Midwest United States, but good afternoon to you in India.
So sorry for waking up so early today.
That's okay.
Is it also very cold out there?
It's a little chilly. It could be worse. I think it's above freezing right now. So.
That's it. So thank you very much for accepting the request to be here.
Yeah, 1 degree above freezing. So just
about. So you'll be talking about digital agriculture, climate change, those topics, right? Super. So how's it looking, Jane? Are we on schedule? It's 5:30 now.
Yes, please. We're on schedule.
So who's starting? Suja is coming.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our special plenary session for the 6th edition of Advanced Technology Program in Agriculture, Global Dialogue on Agtech around the theme Technologies to Mitigate Climate Risk. With India holding the G20 presidency this year and CII being the B20 Secretariat, this global dialogue is a part of CII's B20 engagement. And over the past 3 days, we have been joined by global speakers from key G20 countries. The role of innovations and their actual deployment is integral to accelerate the adoption of technologies at the farm level. The IT revolution in India, new technologies in agriculture, private investment, especially on research and development, government's efforts to rejuvenate the cooperative movement to address the problems of small holdings are all changing the face of agriculture in India today. As the agri-tech ecosystem in the country matures, there is an opportunity for input and commodity players to expand horizontally by building end-to-end relationships with the farmer. There is also an opportunity for large retailers and e-commerce players to strengthen backward integration into the agri-tech space. Finally, food processing companies could also look at agri-tech to keep a tight check on their quality and operations. Lessons from across the world also call for building of a robust agri-tech policy framework in India, which includes collaboration between all market participants, such as farming communities, agri-tech companies, food processing organizations, technology providers, and research institutions. The special plenary session today will discuss a pathways to build a technology-led growth strategy for agriculture to ensure resilience and sustainability. The session will draw on insights from technology advancements and policy frameworks that catalyze innovation and adoption of advanced technologies as a key lever for growth in agriculture. To open our special plenary session, may I invite Mr. Ashok Sharma, Co-Chairman, CII National Council on Agriculture and President Agri Sector, MD and CEO, Mahindra Agri Solutions Limited. Mr. Sharma also heads the business excellence and innovation functions for entire automotive and farm businesses of the Mahindra Group. Over to you, Mr. Sharma.
Thank you very much, Rituja. Friends from India as well as global industry, government officials, members of the academia, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening and good morning to some of you. On behalf of CII, and on my personal behalf, I welcome you all to this special plenary session of the Global Dialogue on Agtech. The global conference is being organized under the umbrella of CII's Advanced Technology Program in Agriculture. And I'm happy to mention that this is the 6th edition of the Global Dialogue. And over the years, the platform has contributed to strengthen the dialogue around advanced technology and how the technology can be absorbed in India. And this is a step to further this discussions. I'm very excited today to introduce the speakers. We are joined by Dr. Arvind Kumar, Deputy Director General Research from ICRISAT. He'll be talking to us about the impact of climate change and the challenges to food security. I'm also happy to introduce Professor Matthew Hudson, Co-Director, Center for Digital Agriculture from University of Illinois. Professor Hudson is an expert in the domain of digital agriculture and genomics. It will be very interesting to hear his presentation on how digital agriculture can be pursued in the future. And thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us early in the morning for you. And then, of course, I welcome our very own Shiv Kumar, Chairman of the CII Core Group on Agtech and Group Head of Agri and IT Business, ITC. Shiv Kumar has been guiding the steering committee of the CII team and has been the instrumental person in designing the entire conference. So I welcome him also. It'll be a pleasure to listen to the policy perspectives as well as global overview on Agtech and its relevance to climate resilience from all these expert speakers. Before I hand over to them, I guess thought it would be worth for us to reflect on how the Indian agriculture industry has transformed in the last 40-50 years, starting with the advancement in the farm machinery, how technology has come in and it's become so much more efficient to manage the land, cultivation of land. Then this whole revolution coming in through new seed technologies, hybridization, increase in irrigation, micro-irrigation, use of agrochemicals, fertilizers, all helping the farmers to increase the yield and help us to get more and more food so that we are all becoming a self-sufficient nation. That's as of now. But friends, when you look ahead, look at 2050, the population slated to be more than 9.3 billion. As per estimates, we would require 50% more food, 50% more food. And how will you get that food? Because on one hand, you have challenges of the climate, where it's very difficult to predict. We all know the challenges we are facing in agriculture on climate due to climate change. We have challenges of water supply. It is expected by 2030, there'll be almost 40% drop in water supply availability globally. 25% of arable land is degraded and urgently requires rejuvenation. Challenges of labor is well known to us. And agricultural sector is not being seen very profitable by most entrepreneurs. So this is the background. Now, obviously, this could create a lot of problems to put food on our table with 50% more food requirement. But friends, that's where I'm sure the whole experts like you and the global players are looking at disruption innovation. And frankly, technology has provided the answers and will provide the answer. And in today's world, the need for transformation by using technology is more than ever, especially in the area of agriculture. We are aware about how technology has been transforming various other industries. And the same has started in agriculture. With increase in connectivity, mobile data, mobile availability, ease of data usage, it's become very convenient for our farmers to access the latest in technology. Developments in the area of precision agriculture, be it IoTs, sensors, satellite imagery, usage of drones, autonomous machines, better prediction of weather, using artificial intelligence for better predictives, and helping the growers to manage their crop efficiently. These technologies are coming in and coming at a very fast pace. And that's the exciting part about the future for us in agriculture. Because clearly, we are moving from agriculture to digital agriculture. And today's session is all about how the future would pan out in the area of digital agriculture in the context of the challenges which agriculture will face in the future. When I look at our country, I must feel proud that the Indian government has taken a lot of strides to move in the technology roadmap by introducing the AgriStack program, where it's a uniform platform where farmers can come and they can access end-to-end solutions across the value chain. The Ministry of Agriculture is also encouraging a lot of partnerships with private sector. So many of you who have ideas on how to leverage the Agtech or the platform, the Ministry of Agriculture is open for such partnerships for promoting digital technology and best practices in the farm sector. So that is one positive development which I'm seeing in our country. Another area which is worth leveraging and thinking about is how do we take the technology to the farmers? And there, the concept of FPOs, which is rather well established but not fully leveraged in our country. And this is a big opportunity for various input companies, for e-commerce, for retailers to tie up with these FPOs, transfer technology, and create a win-win partnership, which is sustainable and helps the farmers to absorb the new technology. So that is one way where the technology can move to the farmers. And a lot of work has been done by CII to promote partnership with the private sector and FPOs. And very successful models have emerged where successfully these partnerships are being implemented on the ground. The third area, which is very exciting from the Agtech standpoint, is this whole development of the Agtech startup. The whole ecosystem has become so vibrant in India. And this is the big enabler which we see for the future. How the startups can get the technology and help the farmers and enhance the value chain efficiencies. And the good thing is that the global investors are finding the Agtech space very interesting, given the challenges of food security, need for nutritive food, safe food. For example, in India alone, in F22, the agri-food tech funding was close to $4.6 billion, almost double of the previous year, with around 234 deals happening of different type of startups getting funded for various areas. And the sectors or the areas which have got maximum funding are in the areas of value chain and logistics, focusing on reduction of food wastage, post-harvest losses, making efficient transportation of the fresh produce. Other areas like food, feed, and fuel ingredients, technologies like vertical farming, hydroponics, animal food alternatives. These are the fundings which have been taken by startups. Areas like crop protection, soil management, we have a lot of startups coming in biologicals, and in terms of regenerating the soil, different startups are focusing there. And a lot of startups are also having business models around animal health and nutrition. So these areas have got very good funding from the investors, and many more interesting ideas are coming every day almost. What it means for many of us is to see how we can, partner these startups, do your own startup, and also leverage the various policies the government has got. Now, government has a special program called Startup India. It's a 19-point action plan where government is supporting the entire agri ecosystem for startups, where there are events like the Agriculture Grand Challenge, which actually gives a chance for various startups to showcase their innovation and get funding and other support. Even NABARD has earmarked $100 million venture capital fund for investing in startups. And there are various private venture capitalists, incubator, HNIs who want to invest in this space. So clearly the world is seeing the Agtech space is a very exciting space in terms of investing, in terms of disruption, and largely happening with the technology coming in. So friends, we are in a very exciting phase where in the next few years, a lot of technology will move into the sector. And all of us are participants in the sector. And I'm sure many of you will bring around new technologies and new innovations, which will actually help to overcome the challenges which I talked about and ensure that our future generations have enough good, nutritious food which they can enjoy. So friends, once again, welcome to all of you. And I'm very excited to hear our wonderful speakers. So do stay tuned in. And thank you very much for coming in. Over to you, Rituja.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. May I now invite Mr. S. Shivakumar, Chairman CII Core Group on Agtech and Group Head Agri and IT Business for his address. Mr. Shivakumar oversees the agri and businesses of ITC. He also holds responsibility for ITC's social investments program. Additionally, he is the chairman of Technico Agri Sciences Limited and vice chairman of ITC Infotech India Limited and its subsidiaries in the UK and USA. The ITC e-Chopal initiative was developed and executed under his leadership. Over to you, Mr. Shivakumar.
Thank you, Rituja. Good evening and good morning to all of you present here. We heard a great overview from Ashok as part of his opening remarks, very clearly sharing what does strategizing for Indian agri-tech for 2047 mean. Because from 1947 until 2022 is quite different from 2022 going forward to 2047. The multi-pronged objectives that we are setting for ourselves just now for Indian agri sector is somewhat more explicit of many objectives that were otherwise also existing, but for large part of the first few decades of independence, the focus was on food self-sufficiency. Now, with food self-sufficiency having been largely achieved, in fact, turning as a net exporter, the other objectives also became far more prominent. Certainly, addressing food security continues to be an important objective for growing population and rising incomes. But together with that, raising farmer incomes has become rather important. And the third piece, which also Ashok alluded to, is in terms of meeting the evolving needs of today's consumers, be it in terms of nutrition or safe food and so on, which is beyond just enough food. So that is an important area that we must also keep in mind. And the fourth is in terms of a nature positive agriculture, so that our natural resource depletion is arrested and renewed and regenerated, particularly with respect to water and topsoil. And lastly, perhaps very critically at this point of time, is in building climate resilience. And we have been otherwise thinking climate change impact will be some years from now, but it is already here and now upon us. And in the recent past, if there's one factor which has had significant impact on every one of the objectives that I mentioned a little while ago, all because of climate change got impacted. And that is one reason why this edition's theme has been taken up as focusing on technologies to mitigate climate risk. Of course, when we talk about mitigation, given the situation where we are on the mitigation front in terms of the objective of the temperatures going forward, adaptation also goes hand in hand. And the entire agri-sector's interface with climate change is three-pronged. Certainly, agriculture contributes to climate change, with the emissions being a very significant part of all emissions. Agri is probably more seriously affected by climate change than many other sectors. The extreme weather impacting the yields as it is, and through the pest and weed and all of those aspects. But more importantly, agriculture can also play a vital role in combating climate change. So from all three perspectives, the sessions over the last 3 days have looked at the many different dimensions. We had 3 different sessions focusing on the how of the farming. We had a segment on smart inputs for climate resilience, both digital as well as biological products, because both have key bearing, whether it is to do with soil, or seed, or smart spraying, or in terms of crop protection and nutrition. And interesting innovations were showcased. We had a second session on IoT in agriculture, focused on precision farming, using sensors, whether for farm mapping or for managing fertilizer, water, many other elements. So essentially, the idea is to get to that precision farming aspect. And thirdly, in the context of climate, all the various tools and support systems for carbon smart farming were also showcased, whether it is to do with GAG calculators or validation tools for carbon capture. See, unlike within the same sector, forestry, agriculture is still an area where standards are still evolving. Consequently, many of these tools were quite important, and therefore they were all showcased together with advisory for the farmers on carbon smart farming practices. And in addition to these 3 on how of climate smart related farming, there's one session on the where. If much of what we discussed was on open to sky kind of agriculture in the earlier 3 sessions, there's one session focusing on controlled environment agriculture and many facets of it, whether it is greenhouses with also retractable roofs, naturally ventilated greenhouses. We saw a session on net houses, aquaponics and aeroponics, as well as other vertical farming solutions. And we had one other session discussing the whole supply chain, driving backwards from consumer into the farm in terms of traceability through technologies like blockchain, as well as integration of fintech for other financial services and other elements of transaction. So while the focus for this particular edition was on climate change, which probably is a pressing issue at this point of time, many different aspects of these technologies were fully showcased, and that gives a fair amount of optimism that Agtech in all its various forms holds the key for navigating into this future, achieving all the 5-pronged objectives that I talked about. This session will broaden the canvas of Agtech, going beyond these 5 sessions that some of you may have participated, and otherwise the headlines that I shared with you. But in addition to all of these point solutions that are tackling one or the other elements of agricultural challenges are grabbing some opportunity. Three other factors I would like to highlight. One is to do with a solution integration and delivery on the ground. Ashok did allude to this also, in terms of a platform that can stitch all of these multiple point solutions together, make them farmer-centric, and deliver on the ground through on-ground interfaces like FPOs. So there is a breed of players which are emerging in the form of solution integrators with a phygital ecosystem to deliver these solutions, factoring a host of other tech solutions beyond the climate change, which was focus of last 3 days, but as part of the larger digital roadmap, some of which we're going to hear from the other two speakers, are also required to be brought on these platforms for delivery on the ground. The second important factor for scaling many of these, while we have a host of startups and ecosystem in terms of venture capital and mentoring, as well as this potentially solution integration, the more important element for scaling is also an ecosystem support from the government. We had one special address yesterday as part of one of the sessions where we heard about the various elements like AgriStack being put in place by the government, whether it is the 3 core databases like the farmer database, or the geo-referenced village maps, or crop zone data, and importantly, data exchange with the rest of the ecosystems, so that it is this government database availability for the Agtech players and vice versa, so that through those interoperable systems and data exchange, one can scale the solutions which are tested through the regulated sandboxes and expand throughout the country. And obviously, part of the governance is also going to be things like consent management about various individual data and so on. So therefore, as part of this Vision 2047 and roadmap, the important element is also this. And lastly, climate change in particular and digital agriculture also in general are issues which have to do with global partnerships. It is not enough to localize some of these kind of efforts and solutions. And this is where the context of G20 comes in, when India has just taken over presidency for the current year. And happily, we had more than 15 participants as part of various innovations that are showcased from the various members of G20. An idea is also to take this forward to strengthen this global partnership through another physical event a couple of months from now, to very much focused on the G20 countries and pursue this vision going forward for the benefit of all the participating countries. So that really sets the background context in which this global dialogue was held. And I was happy to hear of the various showcased innovations so far. And all of them will be, in some sense, put together in this session by the rest of the two speakers on the broader platforms and the digital agriculture that we'll be talking about. So best wishes to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shivakumar. May I now invite Professor Matthew Hudson, Co-Director, Center for Digital Agriculture, University of Illinois, for his address. Professor Hudson is the Co-Director of the Center for Digital Agriculture at Illinois and Professor, Department of Crop Sciences at the University of Illinois. He is also Feedstock Production Deputy Theme Lead at the Center for Advanced Bioenergy and Bioproducts, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you. So thank you for the invitation to talk. I am the co-director of the Center for Digital Agriculture, along with Vikram Adve. Vikram's a computer scientist. Excuse me, you'll have to excuse me, my throat's going. Vikram's a computer scientist and I'm a crop scientist. So it's kind of a unique institution because the two of us co-lead it and we collaborate across the two disciplines of agriculture and engineering, which is unusual in academia. And I'm going to talk about how we're using some of these research areas to try to tackle climate change with digital agriculture. So digital agriculture is a word that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And it's a little bit like the proverbial elephant. All the scientists are experts in a different domain. They all believe what they do is digital agriculture and they're correct, but they often don't see the rest of the elephant. They focus on their own area of genetic engineering or automated phenotyping or databases or something like that. So it's hard to define digital agriculture in the field as a whole. We define it differently. We just call it solving agricultural problems with digital technology. So we have a holistic approach and we try to embrace all of the scientists who are working across disciplines to try to leverage the developments in digital technology to solve agricultural problems, particularly environmental problems. And we do this with three main efforts. We have extensive research themes funded by the US federal government and by industry. We have educational themes, including a Master of Engineering degree in digital agriculture. And we have extension programs to get these technologies out to farms and get farmers involved in the research process. So climate change, if anything, is even more of an elephant than the digital ag problem. There are so many different aspects to climate change and so many different areas in which it intersects with agriculture. Just to give some major areas that we might discuss, there is prevention and mitigation of the greenhouse gas emissions that lead to climate change. And then there's reducing the impact of the climate change, which is probably already inevitable to some extent, on our production of food, fuel, fiber, etc. In terms of prevention and mitigation, we have a lot of technologies, remote sensing down to sensors in fields, even plants as sensors that we're working on to monitor the local environment in fields, monitor the greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture, and monitor land use. We have a lot of agricultural approaches, one or two of which I'll cover in detail, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, we have potential within the agricultural ecosystem to sequester greenhouse gases, so to remove some CO2, particularly from the atmosphere. And then there's reducing the impact of greenhouse gases and climate change on agriculture. Obviously, we have a lot of people using digital technologies to model and plan both future climates and their impact on crop yields and where the best crops should be grown. There's also, with crops, the issue of resilience to greenhouse gases themselves. Crops feed on CO2, and the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere is changing. How is that going to alter agriculture, and what can we do to optimize future crops in that context? And then finally, there's making crops resilient to the consequences of climate change itself. Things like heat resistance, drought resistance, etc. So making crops more resilient to environmental change. And there's also several aspects for animal agriculture and agricultural ecosystems, and this goes into all kinds of different subdisciplines, both of agriculture, civil engineering, agricultural engineering, and digital and computer engineering. So how can digital agriculture help with these problems? So I mentioned already that sensing is a key part of what we do, getting more data on the environment, helping us to know what's going on down at the farm level and make changes that make sense and are helpful, not harmful. We have a big program in robotics which aims to reduce the emissions of a lot of farm equipment by replacing large internal combustion engine driven equipment with smaller electrically driven equipment. We can sequester greenhouse gases. On farm, we have programs looking at both cover crops and soil amendments and the use of biofuels instead of conventional fuels. We have on the resilience side, the modeling and planning. So first of all, to predict what future environments are going to be and what the needs are going to be. And then I'll talk a little bit in detail about our programs to modify and breed crops to optimize their performance under modern and future CO2 conditions, as well as resilient to climate, temperature, drought resistance, and some of the consequences of that, including, for example, ozone pollution in the atmosphere, which is forecast to increase. So here's some examples from our center. I mentioned that we're doing the small robots. We're using cover crops and perennials. And I'm going to give you a couple of specific examples of these. So first of all, sequestering carbon on agricultural lands. There's a couple ways you can go about this. One of them is planting of cover crops, particularly in places like the US Midwest, where our fields are normally laying fallow for much of the year. So we normally don't have any kind of plant cover on the fields between maybe November and April to May. And so by having a crop growing during that off season, we can both reduce soil erosion and increase the sequestering of CO2 into the soil. Perennial crops are another possible approach to that. And then we can also apply certain soil amendments, and one that people are looking at in detail is basalt. So by applying basalt to soils, you can both improve certain types of soil, and the basalt itself, as it weathers, absorbs CO2, and the CO2 is then plowed into the soil as carbonates. So we can actually sequester CO2 into the soil via certain soil amendments, as well as via growing crops. This is an example from Girish Chowdhury. So Girish is a part of our center. He's the director of our autonomous farm. He's also got a startup company. We talked about ag startups. We have a lot of those in the Champaign-Urbana area. This one is called EarthSense, and it focuses on small autonomous robots for agriculture. These are some robots that EarthSense has built and that we're using for our research within the center. And they're designed to sow cover crops under the canopy. So conventionally, what we do when we plant a cover crop is we harvest the current crop, then we plant seed. There's a significant period where there's no crop. And often by the time the cover crop germinates, our climate is rather cold. We don't get a lot of growth. So what these robots allow you to do, and here's a video, I hope this plays for us. They're able to go under the canopy of a maize crop. So you can see here we still have a green maize crop in the summer. The crop is probably a month or two away from harvest already. The robot's going through under the crop canopy, sowing the next crop. And so when the corn crop is harvested, then we see that the cover crop already has a good coverage of the ground. We have leaves, we have a canopy almost closed over the soil by the time that the first crop is harvested. So that cover crop, you can see here's the harvester passing over. The cover crop is able to begin CO2 fixation before the previous crop is even harvested. We get more CO2 sequestered, and if the cover crop is one that can be harvested, we get higher yields from the cover crop. We also have no period where the soil is bare, and so we reduce soil erosion, which is another problem that can ultimately lead to climate change. Another one of the two projects I want to touch on is our free air CO2 enrichment facilities. This is a rather old technology. It's been around since the 90s, and they're now present all over the world, including in India. Ours was one of the first, and it allows the growth of crops under increased CO2, and we can also add ozone and modify the environment in other ways. So we have a computer that measures the wind and the wind speed and the wind direction. And then we have a series of nozzles around the field, and the wind measurement there alters which nozzles are emitting CO2 to keep the CO2 concentration in the ring higher than the ambient CO2 concentration and constant. We can also do this with ozone to account for potential increases in ozone pollution. And we can look at the performance of crops under future environments. Now, the initial idea of this was to look for how crops are going to behave under future environments. And you can see here that under increased CO2, you can see the thermal image on the right shows that plants open their stomata to, they're able to close their stomata more inside the ring. They have their stomata open outside the ring. So the leaves are cooler outside the ring, warmer inside the ring. So the leaf temperatures are higher. This has an effect, but also the plants are able to lose less water under higher CO2. And we have a profound physiological effect. We've been monitoring the physiological effects of crops for a long time, but we can also now add drought shelters to reduce rainfall. We can increase temperature locally, and we're starting to both engineer and breed crops that perform better under these future environments using the latest genomics and genome editing technologies. So you can see that these FACE experiments have now spread through the world. There's several of them in India. One thing we would like to do is integrate all of the data from these experiments and use that data to model the optimal approach to future crop development. So you can see here that we're also moving, much of this has been focused on soybean in Illinois initially, but we're moving to a number of different types of crops and how genetic diversity in crops might be one possible solution. So we had heard a lot about industry engagement before. I wanted to make the point that we have a lot of public-private partnerships in the Center for Digital Agriculture. We need industry if we're going to make a difference to this problem. We have a lot of synergies with industry, both in research and in workforce training, and in a number of other areas such as food security, outreach, and extension. And with that, I'm going to thank everyone for their attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Hudson, for your address. May I now invite Dr. Arvind Kumar, Deputy Director General Research, ICRISAT, for his address. Dr. Kumar is an experienced crop scientist with more than 28 years of experience in crop improvement, trait discovery to drought tolerance, disease insect resistance, and translational research. Over to you, Dr. Kumar. Sir, you are on mute, sir.
Thank you, and good evening to participants from India. Good morning, Dr. Hudson from USA, and other participants who are from the different parts of the world. First of all, thank you to the organizers for inviting ICRISAT to the 6th edition of the Advanced Technology Program in Agriculture, and also opportunity to me to speak about the challenges and opportunities in addressing food and nutritional security, given the threat of the climate change. Evidently, I do understand that there has been few sessions where people must have talked about the challenges that food and nutritional security the world faces as of now. But I do feel that probably I should, even if it is a repeat, I should bring some of those challenges again to highlight that where the agriculture is moving as of now. Now, friends, with 8 years remaining to end hunger and food security, based on our sustainable development goals that we have to achieve by 2030, the world looks to be moving in the wrong direction. Over last few years, food security have further deteriorated in 2021 also, and food prices have increased in the past years. due to several reasons, the COVID-19, the bottleneck in the supply chain, soaring transport cost, and other disruptions, including the war in Ukraine involving the two biggest producers in the agriculture and the staple cereals. And in fact, this had disrupted the supply chains. And on the top of this is the growing frequency and intensity of extreme climate events, on which I will highlight how this climate change is affecting our agriculture production. But over the last 3 years, there is estimate that in 2021, between 702 to 828 million people have been affected by hunger in one way or the other. This number has grown 150 million since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, 103 million more people between 2019 to 2020, and around 46 million people in 2021 have been added to this. The world faces both moderate as well as the severe food insecurity problems. This has increased. Both moderate and severe food insecurity problems have increased in Africa, the region with the highest prevalence of the food insecurity, but it has also worsened in the Latin America and Caribbean. Although in Asia, the prevalence of moderate to severe food insecurity has showed a slight decrease. More scaring is the gender gap in the food insecurity. This gap has widened by around 4.3% in 2021. And in fact, in 2021, while 31.9% of women in the world were affected by moderate food insecurity as compared to 27.6% of the men. Now, coming to the nutritional security, it is estimated that around 670 million people will still be undernourished in 2030. And in fact, surprisingly, this is 8% of the world population, which is the same which was in 2015 when the 2030 agenda was launched. So where are we today? In fact, there is 78 million more unnourished people in 2030 compared to scenario in which pandemic that had not occurred. We know globally that among the children under the age of 5, an estimated 149 million, which is 22%, are stunted in 2020. By 2020 data, 45 million, which is 6.7%, were wasted, and 39 million, which is 5.7%, are overweight. Progress was made towards stunting, while childhood overweight was worsening. Globally in 2019, nearly 1 in 3 women aged between 15 to 49, which is around 30%, are affected by anemia. Now, this is where we stand as of now. And in fact, there are several reasons for this food and nutritional security. And this has been talked in different sessions, but one important is also the climate change. And if we talk about the climate change between 1960 to 2015, this climate change had contributed to around 21% reduction in total factor productivity between 1961 to 2015, and which is equivalent to losing nearly the 7 years of the productivity growth. And this is increasing. This is not decreasing. We have not been able to address the harmful effect of the climate change in an effective way. In fact, we are at a stage, if we talk to India, that we have no time, we can't lose any time further. The last 7 years have been the hottest. And in fact, we are rapidly approaching towards the dangerous tipping points for agriculture, for human health and safety, for ecosystem, as well as for infrastructure. So the IPCC 2022 sixth assessment report of the working group 2 says India is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change related impact. There will be sea rise, there will be crop production to be hit severely with a rising case of heat waves, drought and floods, And every ton of carbon dioxide emission in India will cost $46 to Indian economy. And this will further be worsened with the health hazards, especially communicable disease, instance of widespread flu to increase. So evidently, it is high time that we take climate adaptation and mitigation steps to address the food and nutritional security, not only food and nutritional insecurity, but also to ensure that world becomes a better place for human adaptation and human living. In fact, climate adaptation and mitigation should focus with in special relation to agriculture, co-designing, prioritization, targeting, and scaling of bundled climate smart solutions and climate services for building resilience of the farming system. It is necessary that we start implementing climate safety nets through next-gen climate information services for real-time decision-making on risk management for production of value chains in the drylands. And in fact, there was a presentation just before me on the digital agriculture. How do we use digital agriculture for solving agriculture problems? And in fact, we have a tremendous, we can put in tremendous efforts to solve the problem of accurate weather advisory availability to farmers, risk reducing measures, for example, bringing the crop insurance, and also how farmers can take timely decisions based on the climate that they will face at any particular point of time. Also, genotype into environment, into management interactions are needed to be studied for building resilience for the farming system and quantifying mitigation co-benefits of bundled resilient farming practices to identify the opportunities for incentivizing smallholder farmers for ecosystem services. And in fact, there could be many such actions that we should be taking. Also, it is now necessary that we start talking about the landscape approach for building resilience. The kind of the scenario that we are landing into with the water resource availability, the soil degradation, the soil erosion, and the soil health deterioration. I think the landscape approach for building resilience, not only for the climate change, but also for the reducing the soil erosion, building the soil health is necessary. And therefore, we will need new science for land degradation, improving the soil health, develop sustainable landscape management tools and technologies and strategies. At ICRISAT, we have started talking a lot and working towards the regenerative agriculture for crop livestock interaction, especially for the dryland in tropics. And in fact, we see that this not only will help improve the soil health, but also make the agriculture productivity sustainable. We work towards monitoring soil fertility, develop digital soil fertility maps, and provide climate-smart nutrient management prescriptions. We develop integrated framework for soil health assessment. We use digital agriculture. We integrate digital agriculture with the data collection, the artificial intelligence, and we develop tools and techniques for not only better soil health, but also for controlling diseases, but also for using the drones in the agriculture, but also making agriculture more precision fit. In relation to climate change, it is high time that we start implementing One Health concept. The health of the soil, the health of the plant, the health of the human, the health of the animal, the health of the environment, and it has to move together. If not, if we break this chain, I think climate change, we won't be able to address the climate change effect. And then we need to design, develop, validate, and scale innovative water management technologies, tools, and strategies for building resilience and improve economic and nutritional water productivity. I would like to bring here one research that ICRISAT did in the Bundelkhand region. And those who are from India, and they know Bundelkhand region, those who are from the other parts of the world, if you look on the Google, what is the Bundelkhand, you will find that this is one of the driest area of the India, with only 600 to 700 millimeter of the rainfall. And ICRISAT implemented the water conservation practice over 3,000 hectares land. And in fact, this not only helped in low emission landscape approach for sustainable modernization of the traditional rainwater, but also enhanced the productivity, also enabled us to enable farmers to take crops on the fallow land, which they were not able to use because of non-availability of the water. But we also trained farmers that how they use this water in a sustainable way that helps to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. Another aspect which I will like to bring for addressing the climate change is mainstreaming climate resilience and nutrition into crop improvement. We develop varieties which is more resilient to climate, and we need to learn the lesson from the last year. In fact, this year, last year effect on wheat cultivation in India because of the high temperature, where there are several reports which say that because of the high temperature during flowering, the yield of wheat was significantly reduced between 15 to 20%. And so it is necessary that we mainstream the high temperature tolerance, the drought tolerance into breeding, and to maintain the nutritional security, we mainstream the nutrition component, including the high iron, high zinc, high calcium into the breeding program. Moving ahead, understanding the climate change, long-term, short-term, the effect, not only at the global level, but also at the local level. And then combining that with the weather advisory, the climate change modeling, the development of the climate adaptation and mitigation interventions, and also bringing the risk reducing measures such as crop insurance, and implementing it at the village level. We have worked towards the concept of the climate smart villages, where we have brought the mechanization, where we have brought the precision agriculture, where we have brought the digital agriculture. But this was done based on the community vision. We co-designed the farm system based on their vision. And in fact, we help them address the climate resilience, climate change effect in a more effective way. My last slide, since many of you know that 2023 is going to be the International Year of Millet, and I will like to link it with the nutritional security that was given as part of the topic for my this talk. At the initiation of Government of India and duly endorsed by the United Nations, we have started celebrating the International Year of Millet on 6th December. Government of India, together with FAO and ICRISAT, the program on International Year of Millet was launched. And in fact, International Year of Millet is an opportunity in 2023 that we address the problem of the nutritional insecurity that we have, the nutritional malnutrition that our population faces all across the world. Millets, which are high in iron, zinc, calcium, fiber, and also low in the glycemic index, are a very good healthy food, for which we have moved away because we have adapted ourselves more to the staple food of rice and wheat, and have probably been eating this food which doesn't provide the same kind of the health benefit that millet provides. And in fact, I take the advantage of the presence of some of the industry leaders to ensure and to promote millets in our food through the approaches that they can follow. And ICRISAT will be very happy to work with them to ensure that in the International Year of Millet, we promote nutritional security through bringing millets more into the food. Lastly, I congratulate all the speakers and participants of different sessions, including some of the sessions that I heard in the talk: smart input, IoTs, precision agriculture, supply chain, market linkages, which is in fact in one way or the other is needed to address the climate change issue. And in fact, will help us develop better adaptation as well as climate mitigation measures. Once again, I take this opportunity to thank the organizers for bringing me to this discussion, and also for me to learn few of the things that was talked today for my future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar. May I now invite Ms. Jane Karkada, Senior Director, CII Food and Agriculture Center of Excellence, for delivering the concluding remarks. Over to you, Jane.
Thanks, Rituja. Esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, this was the 6th edition of the Advanced Technology Program around a very pertinent theme, technologies to mitigate climate risks. We've had very insightful deliberations over the last 3 days on 5 thematic sessions around climate resilience, smart input solution for climate resilience, IoT in agriculture, blockchain, carbon smart farming, and controlled environment agriculture. We had with us seasoned founders from across the globe to deep dive into global advancements on agri-technology and explore opportunities for their adoption with respect to climate change in India. We had over 15 global speakers joining us over the last 3 days from 10 countries. Going forward, CI will be happy to facilitate engagement conversations between Indian companies and global innovators where there is mutual interest. I'm also happy to mention that with India holding the G20 presidency this year, this conference is a part of CII's G20 B20 engagement, CI being the B20 Secretariat, and we had a host of speakers from the G20 countries. We propose to take this conversation and follow it up with a physical event in Feb 2023 focused on the G20 countries. In addition, this special plenary session, Strategizing Indian Agtech Vision 2047, deliberated on the future trajectory of agri-technologies adoption in India. We will take forward the actions arising from the conference with the policymakers to ensure enablers are put in place for adoption of advanced technology in India. With these words, I would like to propose a formal vote of thanks. I would like to thank all our speakers in this special plenary session: Dr. Arvind Kumar, Professor Matthew Hudson, Mr. Ashok Sharma, Mr. S. Shivakumar, for taking time out and joining us today. I also take this opportunity to thank the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare Government of India for partnering with the 6th edition of the Advanced Technology Program and extending their support. Also, I would like to thank our partners who supported this our effort: ITC, PI Industries, Mahindras, Triveni, Olam Agro, Bayer, TAFE, and Corteva. I also take this opportunity to thank our friends from media and above all the participants who joined us over the last 3 days. We look forward to your continued engagement towards the vision of technology-led growth in the agriculture sector. Thank you. And with this, we close the session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.